Political discourse is broken. Everybody is quick to celebrate at another's loss. They have a lack of empathy for people that believe something different, and there seems to be no room for nuance. If I tell you I'm pro-gun, you're going to infer an entire background of assumptions about me. If I say I'm vegan or pro-choice, you'll do the same thing. It's quick and easy to jump to conclusions about someone, but it takes time and effort to listen and understand them. The never-ending news cycle and apathy bred online heavily contributes to this problem. It's hard to spend the mental energy and focus on one topic when soon something else will be the pressing issue of the week. The unreliability and the multitude of various outlets of information also make it difficult to navigate the political world. This leads to people already having their minds made up when they hear where a source or opinion came from, based solely on their politics. Like take the Trump assassination attempt. For some people, there's nothing that could ever convince them that it wasn't a hoax for attention and publicity. But for others, no matter how much evidence to the contrary they were given, they would never let go of their initial belief that he was attacked. Nobody is really open to changing their mind. And this is nothing new. Back when Obama was running for president and people were saying he wasn't eligible because he was born outside of the US, no amount of opposing evidence would satisfy them. If they personally saw his birth certificate, they would just say it's falsified and not real. Cognitive dissonance and confirmation bias are often buzzwords that are thrown around, but they are concepts that hold truth in today's climate. It's also becoming more and more difficult to publicly try and stay in the middle anymore. I've heard people on the right voice the sentiment, we can disagree about policies, but still reason and talk with each other.
We can disagree about politics, of course, can even disagree about how the media frames things and everything else. But he's basically saying show up to a rally and...
But that outlook is met with people on the left saying, not if our disagreements are about whether people's existence is valid, or not if our disagreements prevent life-affirming healthcare. As someone who doesn't claim either party, I don't think the right is intentionally trying to do that. They may support policies that the left says causes that, but I don't think malicious harm is the goal. I don't think intentional damage is the objective of either side. They just have different areas of focus. But a lot of the time, they each attribute the worst possible intentions to each other, and there's never any benefit of the doubt. This vilification of the opposing party justifies the severe rhetoric and apathy against them, and an unwillingness to even interact with each other only breeds extremism.
My emotion is emotionally, what, in terms of his personal health, is absolute indifference.
No, do you condemn the shooter shooting Donald Trump?
No. Not here, not on this program, not in front of these people. Absolutely
You do not condemn a deranged shooter.
These people?
People also have what I call a one-size-fits-all comeback that they use against people they don't like. Imagine thinking such and such. Tell me you're a blank without telling me you're a blank. Or the new one. Every accusation is actually a confession. You can deploy these ignorant rebuttals and write off any argument someone could possibly have, and somehow feel like you've won. You're not doing anything. You're not actually addressing the topic. That would be too much work. It's the adult version of the juvenile, I know you are, but what am I? Each side can't even fathom believing what the people on the opposing side do. However, there's something interesting I've noticed. Let's take a look at both parties' stance on masking and abortion. With masking, the right says that forcing people to wear them is stripping them of their individual freedom. It's unconstitutional and Orwellian.
I can't see fucking shit out of this thing. I can't see in this fucking thing. I can't breathe in this fucking thing and I can't ride in this fucking thing.
While the left says, what about the risk of the people you interact with? This mild inconvenience could literally save the lives of those around you.
I think we all think the bag was a nice idea.
Yeah.
Like not pointing any fingers. They could have been done better.
Compare this with each party's argument for abortion. Now, it's the left who prioritizes a woman's individual autonomy over her body, while the right is more concerned with others by saying, well, what about the rights of the unborn child? So for abortion, the argument is my body, my choice. But against forced masking and vaccinations, it's also my body, my choice. I think this clearly demonstrates that each side has the ability to think like the other. So no matter how much you demonize or belittle them, they use a similar rationale as you for arriving at their ideas. Despite the opposing conclusions, the fundamental structure of reasoning isn't that different.
You and I are not so different.
I'm not like you. You're a murderer.
Well, to each his own. Here's the real truth.
For pretty much every main disagreement, there's a similar avenue of thought that can be traced. Their thoughts on an open border. Conservatives say, what about the criminals and sex trafficking? Liberals say, well, what about helping your fellow human being? Climate change. Liberals say, what about the future of the planet? Conservatives say, what about the economic burden to us here now? Each party is trying to help the way they see most effective. Their priorities are just different. And toxic whataboutism causes each side to rationalize behaving in the exact same way they wish the other side wouldn't. Nobody wants to be the first one to apologize, so there's a never-ending downward spiral of hate.
And think about the double standard of demanding a certain pattern of behavior from others that you do not sign up to.
There are no more standards in American
You may or may not take my advice. You may or may not take my advice. I'm just saying, on reflection, you might conclude that the best way to persuade other people to behave in a better way is not to behave in an utterly degrading way yourself.
I was raised fairly conservative, and what swayed me to some of the liberal or nuanced positions I have now wasn't people screaming they hate me and saying how stupid I was, but it was from rational, calm people willing to explain to me why they thought I was wrong, not screaming at me that I was. I think it's important to remember that the reasoning people use for opposing ideas is similar to the same logic you used for your beliefs. If each side writes the others off as lost causes, then nothing will ever change. They'll both become further entrenched in extremism, and the landscape will get even more violent. If you really want to persuade someone to your side, if you come across as hysterical or unreasonable, then even if you have more ethical values, your arguments likely won't do anything, aside from solidifying the divide.
Since I've left the movement, I've helped over 100 people disengage from extremist movements, from white supremacist groups to even jihadist groups. And the way I do that is not by arguing with them, not by debating them, not by even telling them they're wrong, even though, boy, I want to sometimes. I don't do that. Instead, I don't push them away, I draw them in closer. And I listen very closely for their potholes. And then I begin to fill them in. I try to make people more resilient, more self-confident. They became extremists because they wanted to belong, not because of ideology or dogma. What brought them out was receiving compassion when they least deserved it, from the people they least deserved it from. So I would like to leave you with a challenge. Go out there today, tomorrow, hopefully every day. Find somebody that you think is undeserving of your compassion and give it to them, because I guarantee you they're the ones who need it the most.
Thanks for watching until the end. If you want to support the channel even further, consider joining my Patreon. You can participate in monthly Q&As and get insight into what I'm working on next. And a huge thanks to those of you who are already over there. Thanks for watching my videos.